I want to start off with a story. A couple of years ago, two economists were looking at what was going on in the Perth petrol market. And they found something kind of strange. They noticed that when they got all of the data for the prices at various petrol stations, they could start to see signalling going on. They saw big retailers using particular petrol stations to put prices up just a few days before or behind the weekly cycle. And the more they looked at the data, the more they realised that something strange was going on. Where a generation ago, these big firms would have gotten together in a smoke-filled back room and had an illegal conversation, now big data was allowing them to do exactly the same thing, but through prices on particular petrol stations. Once they followed it and unpacked it, they discovered the most extraordinary thing. This synchronisation of the weekly petrol price cycle was costing Perth motorists, pushing up prices by a handful of cents per litre, meaning that over the course of a year, motorists to be hundreds of dollars worse off. And this is just another manifestation of what a few big firms are doing across Australian industries. We're all familiar with the tales of banks having a high market share, of our supermarket sector being concentrated, of telecommunications having just a few players. But it was only when John Daly, the head of the Grattan Institute, said to me, "So Andrew, flip it around. Name me a few industries that are not dominated by a few big firms," that I started to realise how bad the problem was. You go through the industries and it just reads like a who's who of our economy. Beer is overly concentrated. So is baby food. So is funeral services. So are departmental stores. Private health insurance is concentrated. Internet services provision. And we've traditionally thought of this as being a problem that hurts consumers. We've traditionally thought of monopolies as being a way of driving up prices and driving down quantity. But increasingly we're realising there's something more insidious going on. Because when a few big firms dominate a market, a whole lot of other things change as well. If you've got significant market share, suddenly you don't need to be worried about a scrappy startup. You just buy them. You don't need to be worried about doing classy research and development because you can just get fat and lazy exploiting your monopoly position. And in an environment where you've got strong unions, monopolies need to share some of the gains of their power with workers. But that's not today's environment. Today's environment isn't the environment that I grew up in, where half the workforce were in a union. Today we're in a world in which 1 in 7 workers are in a union. And if we keep on having union membership falling over the next decade, as it's done over the last couple of decades, we'll soon have American-level unionisation rates. What that means is that oligopolies are able to push down wages. They're able to do to workers what they've traditionally done to their consumers. Offer them a worse deal and restrict their chances of moving. A couple of years back it was revealed that Silicon Valley firms had engaged in collusive arrangements for software programmers, agreeing not to poach each other's workers. Now that's a great agreement if you're a large firm who doesn't want to pay too much for engineers. But it's terrible if you're a software engineer who's looking for new opportunities. Right now, a huge share of the American workforce has signed a non-compete agreement in which they agree that if they leave their current worker, then they won't seek employment in the same sector for 6 months or sometimes a year. These non-compete agreements used to be something just in professional services firms. But you've now got cleaners and gardeners in America signing non-compete agreements and dampening their wages as a result. Recent work's been done on no poach clauses too. Across franchise operations in America, more than half of all American franchises have a little clause in which one franchise operator promises not to poach each other's workers. So if you work at McDonald's in one suburb, then the McDonald's in the next suburb has signed up as a condition of their franchise licence to promise that they won't poach other workers. It's a form of collusion between bosses that dampens down wages. And so it's no great surprise that when you look at the share of national income that's going to workers, it's as low in Australia as it's been in 40 years. And it's fallen across most advanced countries. The share of income going to profits is soaring. The share of income going to employees is tanking. Oh, sorry, should be fair about this. There is one group of employees who's seeing pretty good wage growth. A group of employees that saw wage gains of 9% last year. Unfortunately, they're a fairly small group of employees. They are the ASX 100 CEOs. Average pay packet, $6 million. So as workers' wages have stagnated, CEO pay has skyrocketed. We're now in an Australia in which the home ownership rate is as low as it's been in 6 decades, in which the incarceration rate is as high as it's been since Federation. We've got sluggish wage growth, and for most Australian workers the last 6 years has been a period in which they haven't seen real wages grow at all. And we've got inequality now at a 75-year high. So that's why increasingly you're seeing in Labor a focus on what we do which is centred around inequality, in which we talk about the gap between rich and poor not just as one of the many things we need to worry about, but as our central critique of what the Abbott, Turnbull, Morrison government has delivered for Australia, and the central argument as to what Australia will aim to achieve under a shortened Labor government. We've done a lot of policy work. We've got the same consistent team that we've had over the course of the last 5 years. We're united around Bill Shorten, and we're hungry for ideas. Unity in personnel has fuelled our enthusiasm for your ideas. I've caught many of you on ideas. Hopefully we can have a chance for a couple of questions. I get the sense from Sarah I may be hitting my time limit on that. But also too, anytime you want to touch base with me or any of my hard-working Labor colleagues, send us an email. We admire what the Fabians have done. We're keen for your ideas. We're in the ideas business, and we're very grateful to you for getting together to have that progressive conversation tonight. Thanks very much.
Thank you.